Hello, I'm Dan Falkenstrom. I'm the Facilities and Incubator Director here at the Tech Valley Center of Gravity. You may have seen our building at the corner of 3rd and Broadway in downtown Troy and looked through the giant windows and wondered just what is it that goes on in there. So today I'm going to give you a little bit of an overview about who we are, what we do, and then I'll give you a tour of our building. So at the core, we are a maker community. We're a nonprofit organization, and by getting a membership to us, you get access to our building, our equipment, and our community of people who like to make stuff. So at the moment, we have about 200 members, and they span a wide range of age and experience. We have students, retirees, artists, engineers, anyone who has an interest in making things can find a home here. So our makerspace, our building, is about 13,000 square feet, 2 floors, 81 major tools, and we're broken up into different equipment zones. So we have a 3D printing zone, laser cutter, Incubator is our kids makerspace, fiber arts and crafting, wood shop, welding, machine shop, and our prototyping center. We also offer classes and events that teach people how to use those tools and provide skill development. So if you have never used a table saw or a welder before, we can help you out with that. We also offer a manufacturing incubator program. So the goal of this is really to help hardware startups overcome the challenges involved in making a prototype or transitioning from prototype to manufacturing. So I'm going to talk about that in a little bit. We have a couple different membership levels based on what sort of access you need to the space. So our maker membership, $60 a month, gives access weeknights and weekends. So it's perfect if you have a day job and your side hustle is just nights and weekends. Super Maker, $100 a month. That gives you 24/7 access to our building and our tools. We also offer a co-working membership that's only $50 a month. So that gives you access to our building and our common work areas 24/7, but it does not provide any access to any of the power tools. We also offer corporate memberships, family memberships, and a whole bunch of space rental options as well. So as you're working on a physical project, you need a place to put it. So we have floor space that we rent out by the square foot, no lease or long-term commitment. We also have lockers, bins, shelvings, whatever you need to store your stuff, we can make it happen. We wouldn't exist without partners and sponsorships. So this is just a small collection of the groups that have helped us over the years and who are major supporters. So we are a New York State certified business incubator. So we are in the Innovate 518 group of organizations. So if our incubator can't help you, someone else in the Innovate 518 network probably can. And we all work together to make sure that whatever your needs are, that you're working with the right organization to conquer those challenges. So our incubator. So I already mentioned it's primarily for hardware startups, for people who are doing physical things. That's really where we shine and where we can make the most impact. So the core team, Cheryl Kennedy is the executive director of the Center of Gravity. I've already introduced myself. And Mike Logsinger, he is our board chair. He's also a senior VP at the Center of Economic Growth. And we're kind of the core incubator team that starts off with companies to kind of figure out what their needs are, and then we bring in additional people as needed. So why would you consider a manufacturing incubator? So we consider ourselves a personal trainer for product development. So we are really useful for early stage startups who don't know what they don't know. You may or may not already have a technical partner. You may or may not already have a prototype. We're going to help you figure out what technical gaps you have in your process, in your product, and come up with ways to overcome them. And not only can we give you the mentorship, but we can also give you a place to exist. You can use if you have a membership, you can use our building as your address. You can get mail shipped here. You can use this as your base of operations. You can do your prototyping. You can do your prototyping work here. You can start to do short-run manufacturing. So it gives you a physical location to move out of the garage, out of the spare bedroom, and into an actual workspace. So prototyping, really the whole point of a proper prototype is to make a device that will help you get data to make decisions for where your business is going to go. Is there an actual market for it? As you're doing market research, you may need a physical prototype to interact with people to really learn how they use it, whether or not it solves a problem that actually exists. So we can help guide you through developing a prototype that will specifically get the data that you need for as low a cost as physically possible. And then when you get to the point where your prototype is relatively fleshed out, we can help with the transition from going from that prototype and into production. So that's a pretty complex process, designed for manufacturing process. So we can assist with that. How do you get involved? We have an application on our website with about a dozen questions, which kind of goes over the basics of who you are and where your company is at. We'll set up an introductory meeting. We'll talk over your responses, and we'll see whether or not our program is a good fit. If it's not, we'll see if we can recommend you to another program in the area that is. The initial program fee is $750 and also requires a membership to the Center of Gravity. So for that fee, you receive, first of all, you have 100% ownership of your product at all times. We do not ask for any stake or any equity in your business. Your IP remains yours the entire time. You'll get 6 advisory team meetings. So these are very kind of generic, big picture. We'll check in with what your status is. Through the incubator period, we'll be focused on a very specific goal. We'll be tackling a specific problem. So the advisory team meetings will be checkpoints to make sure that you're progressing towards what that goal is. You will also get 5 hours of time with an engineer in residence. So we work with a whole bunch of independent contract engineers who are specialized in different fields. So depending on what your problem is, we will choose an engineer to work with you based on what skills you need help with. So if you're just diving into finite element analysis, we work with someone who has 20 years of experience doing FEA and detailed structural design. If you have electronics problems, if you're specifically trying to work out a process for injection molding, we would assign you an engineer that has those specific skills. By participating in our incubator, you're also eligible for the Innovate 518 Hotspot tax incentives, if you are indeed eligible. And then after that, we can add on either additional engineering residence hours. We can also offer discounted direct engineering services. So if you need 20 hours of CAD work, or you need some specific fabrication work, we have people who will give discounted services to our incubator clients. We also offer some programming to our local startup community. These are open to anyone, so our Food for Thought luncheon series will be a 1-hour talk on a specific technical subject that would be relevant to a hardware startup. Our meetup group is called Hatched, the Capital District Inventors and Entrepreneurs Meetup, so you can search for that on meetup.com. We meet the first Thursday of every month, and we have a couple different formats. So we will have sharing nights where it's just an informal discussion. Everyone talks a little bit about the project that they're working on. They'll solicit feedback. They'll ask questions. And then we'll also host speaker nights. So we'll have someone come in and talk about their experiences in prototyping or in manufacturing to share their lessons learned. Some notable graduates that have come through our program: United Aircraft Technologies. They invented a new clamp for aircraft wiring harnesses. So we spent some time helping them out with their CAD and their bill of material structure. And so they started out with a little office space in the center of gravity. They made use of our 3D printers for some of their initial prototypes, and they got larger. They moved to a office space upstairs of our building, and now they're getting ready to start manufacturing operations out in the Berkshires. So it's really cool to see them grow and succeed. Vorpal Board, another company, they created a streaming service for board games. So they're another group that used our laser cutters and our wood shop to create their initial prototype, and they used a little bit of our equipment to do their initial product run after their successful Kickstarter campaign. Here are some of the notable companies currently in our incubator program. So we're always accepting applicants on a rolling basis, so there is no definitive start and end point. If you're interested in applying, you can apply at any time, and we will start your program whenever it makes sense for you. And generally it lasts about a year. So that's a kind of our brief overview, and now let's go take a tour of our building. Welcome to the center of gravity. So just behind the front desk, we have our open workbench space. We have first come, first served tables for anyone to use. This is mostly where our co-working members hang out, but these tables can be used by anyone for anything. We've got a couple public computers open for anyone to use. Section of office equipment. We have a wide format plotter for posters, banners, paper cutters, laminator, standard copier, scanner, email device. In the corner we have our 3D printing zone. So we have a whole bunch of entry-level FDM 3D printers designed pretty much for beginner use. So we have all of the settings and instructions available, so even anyone with very limited 3D printer knowledge can get up and running printing things. We don't provide any consumables, but every zone has its own section of consumables that are open to membership. So we have a whole bunch of 3D filament. If you use a little bit of filament, no big deal. If you use a whole bunch, we ask that you replace what you use. We have 2 meeting rooms. This is the CEFQ community room for large classes, meetings, events. Today we were playing around with a giant spirograph with a giant pencil. So this room has a large projector screen. I can seat maybe about 50 people. A whole bunch of tables that can be moved around and arranged as needed. Boardroom is a smaller meeting room. Any member can use any of these rooms free of charge. It's included in membership. There's a reservation system if you know you absolutely need a room for a certain time. But otherwise, if the room is not in use, feel free to grab it and use it. Our community kitchen can also be used by any members. They are strategically connected to both the boardroom and the CEFQ room, so if you have an event that you want to have catered, caterers can use the kitchen as a prep space and cater your meeting or class. This is normally just where members network over food, coffee machines here. And this is where we would hold our Tuesday night open house social night, where we would have members cooking food and giving tours, introducing the makerspace to people, and hopefully we'll be able to hold those once again in the future. Just outside the kitchen, we have our social lounge area. Here is the Thinkubator. This is our children's makerspace. So this is where we would host field trips, scout groups, a whole bunch of arts and craft supplies, small hand and power tools, something for small hands-on tech projects to get children interested in making things and in all of the STEM subjects. Here we have our 60-watt laser cutter. This is one of our more popular tools. So the laser cutter can be used to cut thin woods and plastics and engrave on just about anything else. So you can see a whole bunch of wood cutouts here. Up on the wall, these lanterns are part of our Intro to the Laser Cutter class. So that class will teach you how to operate the laser cutter and how to use the software to make the vector images that are used to cut out the wood to make a lantern. So each zone has a safety orientation that you have to go through before using the equipment. Once you go through that safety orientation, just goes over like the major safety rules and how to use the equipment. If you're comfortable using the equipment after that, feel free to go right ahead and start making stuff. But if not, then we host a whole bunch of different classes that will teach you everything you need to know about how to make it work. The model shop area has a whole bunch of small hand and power tools. So we've got a Dremel with a whole bunch of associated bits, dust collector, shears, presses, hot glue guns, and the like. A bunch of hand tools in the toolbox. The electronic zone has all of your oscilloscopes, soldering irons, multimeters, power supplies. It's a nifty microscope for working on really small projects. And again, just like the other zones, has a whole bunch of consumables that are available for anyone to use. The fiber art zone has a whole bunch of crafting supplies. We have a couple different sewing machines, serger, the Cricut vinyl cutter. It's very popular. We have an industrial sewing machine for leather, canvas, thicker materials, a whole bunch of jewelry making supplies, some glass cutting, and downstairs we have 2 glass kilns that I'll show you that are used pretty frequently. As I mentioned, we rent out storage space by the square foot. So this entire area is a bunch of innovation spaces. So it's a mix of small businesses, like Albany Cell Phone Repair here, who don't need a full office, but just need a small space to set up a desk so they do their work. Or it's a place where members who have just too many projects overflowing their kitchen table can set up their own workspace and get out of their house or apartment. And now we will head downstairs to the other shops. If you want to see what other people have been making here, follow hashtag #MadeAtTheCog. So the first stop is our wood shop. So we have all your major pieces of woodworking equipment: jointer, planer, table saw, Sanders, bandsaws, lathes, handheld tools. Let's check out what someone's working on over here. Looks like we got a cutting board, pretty large one, in the middle of a glue up. So the wood shop's pretty popular for making prototypes as well. If you're just first trying to figure out the shape of something or an enclosure, it's usually a lot faster, cheaper to make something out of wood to at least get the feel for the size and shape, and then you can move on to metal or plastic or whatever the final material is. But working with wood can be a lot easier and cheaper for the first couple rounds. Here we have our welding room. So we have all machines for heavy metal fabrication. We have a TIG welding station, MIG welding station, bench grinders, horizontal bandsaw, plasma cutter, chop saw, everything for steel and aluminum fabrication. All of these bins are available to rent, so if you just need a small spot to put your stuff as you're working on it. Some people like to customize their bins. This gentleman here modified their bin to fit all of their power tools. It has power running to it, spots for all of their supplies and tools. So that's just an example of the kind of creative people that hang out here. Moving along into our metal shop. So we have more metalworking equipment here. So we have our desktop CNC machine for soft metals and plastics. Vertical mill and lathe, 2 metal fabrication staples. All the associated tooling necessary for both. We've got a small lathe, blast cabinet, hydraulic press, metrology tools. We've got a shear and a brake for sheet metal projects. Bandsaw, drill presses, all of our hand tools. Over here we have 2 glass kilns for fusing and enameling of glass. So over here we can see some examples of some glass slumping, some stained glass work, some enameling. Whole bunch of scrap materials. So if you're just working on a project, needed just a couple small pieces of metal, don't want to run out to Home Depot or order something online, there might be something here that will get you by. And again, more shared consumables. So we got some sheet plywood, whole bunch of nuts and bolts. So pretty common for someone to buy a box of hardware, use a couple bolts, and then leave the rest for everyone else to use. So we have a lot of electrical components, power supplies, servo motors, battery holders, all sorts of fun components. Behind this door, thanks to the Jeff Lawrence Innovation Fund, is our prototyping center zone. So this zone is set up a little more like a modern manufacturing type environment. So all the equipment here is higher-end digital fabrication tools. So unlike the rest of the makerspace, every tool here has a cost for training and a cost per hour for use to help cover the cost of running the equipment and maintenance, since those expenses are a little bit higher. However, it's priced a lot cheaper than if you were to try to send things out to get done elsewhere. So over here is our 5x8 CNC router. So this is used for cutting out woods, plastics, plywoods. And this is set up to be very approachable for beginners. So all of the tooling is pre-selected. We have a nice selection of entry-level tools. We have all of the speed and feed rates figured out. So when you're just getting started learning how to program this, figure out how fast your cutting bit should go, we have a whole bunch of reference information to make it really easy to get started. This is a 2-foot by 4-foot vacuum former. So this takes a mold and presses it into a heated sheet of plastic to make a 3D plastic object. It's typically used for packaging. That's what it's mostly been used for, people prototyping packaging designs for their products. Next to the vacuum former, we have another laser cutter. This one is twice as powerful and 3 times as fast as the one upstairs. So it's entirely possible to use this for short-run manufacturing or just to get your prototype work done faster. Then over here we have some commercial-grade 3D printers. So here's the Formlabs 3B. So this is a SLA resin printer. This is actually a medical grade resin printer. So this is typically used by dentists to do dental implant work and to check to make sure things are sized appropriately before making final versions. But resin printers have a very high detail, they're very accurate. Get it to focus there. If we can. Maybe not. It's very detailed. We have the entire workstation set up. So with resin printers, there's a little bit more fumes. You're dealing with a lot of isopropyl alcohol, a lot of liquid cleaning. So we have all of the necessary tools here ready to go to make the process easy to use. And then this is our commercial grade FDM 3D printer. So this is very similar to the ones upstairs, except this one hardly needs any tinkering. It just works. So this prints out ABS plastic is probably the most popular. Let's see if we can take a look what's going on in there. Yeah, maybe. So this print is just starting, so it's hard to really get a good look at what's going on. This printer has the ability to do a dissolvable support material. So if you look over here, everything in white will dissolve away when placed in a special bath. So that allows you to do a lot of weird geometries, overhangs, really detailed prints. Not quite as detailed as a resin printer, but still excellent for proof of concept. We have a lot of workbench and table space that can be used to assemble products, work on your prototypes. And in the back of this room is a whole bunch of open square footage available to rent, so you can store your raw materials. And through these double doors, we have a car-sized freight elevator. So if you need to get a pallet of plywood shipped here, it's really easy to have it dropped off, brought down the elevator, through the doors, and then roll it straight in onto the router or the laser cutter. So that about concludes the tour. If you're interested in coming to see this place in person, you just shoot me an email, facilities at tvcog.net, and we hope to see you around here soon.